Hello, welcome to the ASRS Basics for Employers. My name is Barry O'Dowd. I'm the account executive for Broadspire, who manages the long-term disability program for the Arizona State Retirement System. This is the basic session for the long-term disability program. Today we're going to go over some eligibility and reminders, so program features, frequently asked questions. We're going to go over some of the long-term disability packets and how to send that information. We're going to talk about LTD roles and also the Broadspire portal, who to contact and how. Long-term disability. The long-term disability benefit pays up to 66 and 2/3% of pre-disability earnings based on contributions you, the employer, has made to the ASRS for that employee. There is a 6-month waiting period before benefits begin. 6 months from their date of disability, and this is a benefit-free waiting period, usually bridged with short-term disability if your facility offers it. While a person is on long-term disability, they earn ASRS service credit while receiving long-term disability. So for every month they're receiving a long-term disability benefit, they are receiving ASRS service credit, which is increasing their pension as if they were sitting and working in their job. An individual can be eligible for long-term disability up until their normal retirement. You need to see details regarding this on the ASRS website. If an employee has met membership, they are possibly eligible for long-term disability. An employee doesn't have to be off work completely to qualify for long-term disability, which we'll talk about in a few moments. So just remember, they don't have to be completely off work to qualify for long-term disability. The normal claim processing time is 45 to 60 days from the date that we received all completed information and documentation. If an employee doesn't have 12 continuous months of contributions prior to their date of disability, an additional review may need to be completed, which will definitely take longer than the 60-day normal processing time. If you need to terminate an employee or they resign prior to or during the LTD application process, it doesn't impact the long-term disability claim. This is in writing in both the employee and the employer guide, which I will go over later on in the presentation. But again, it does not impact their LTD claim if you need to separate or terminate them. If you have an LTD claim packet on your facility website, they should be removed as soon as possible. Reason being is you, the employer, are required to document and provide a date when you first initially provided the long-term disability claim packet to a member, and this constitutes because there is a law of a time frame for them to submit their claim packet. So we need that information. Also, what I've been finding is that those that have it on a website are usually outdated forms, and we need to be using the most current claim packet. So if you do have any claim packets on your facility website, please remove them. Don't hold on to applications. The 6-month waiting period is for benefits, not to when to submit a claim. Remember, we'd like to receive the benefit information or the claim packet to be able to make our decision before the end of the 6-month waiting period so benefits can begin. Wanted to remind everyone that Broadspire does not have any knowledge of health insurance plans, their eligibility, or their premiums. So any of that information should be directed to ASRS. When submitting documents, do not submit any of the following using the Send LTD document option through secure messaging on the ASRS website. We'll go over more in detail, but the following should not be sent using the Send LTD document button. General questions. So if you're asking about claim status and so forth, without any documents, you're not able to use the Send LTD document option. Health insurance premium benefit forms, or the annual health insurance plan forms. Again, Broadspire has no knowledge of the health insurance plans, and by using the Send LTD document button or option on the secure messaging, we'll send it to Broadspire. You need to be using the send option, which we'll get into again more detail when we get into secure messaging. So, claim packets. When are you responsible for providing that information? First and foremost, you are responsible for starting the LTD claims process by providing the LTD claim packet to the employer or the member. When should you send that information to them? When any of the following applies. So if an individual is on an approved intermittent or full-time medical FMLA for themselves, you would send them a claim packet. If the employee is not eligible for FMLA or you don't offer FMLA, but they're on an approved medical leave for themselves, you would send them a claim packet. So in these situations on the FMLAs is when you're sending out that cert that they've been approved on FMLA, you can provide that LTD claim packet to them as well. The only time I guess I would not send that information to is if it was somebody going out on a normal pregnancy and being approved for FMLA. If it's a complicated pregnancy, then yes, you would. Any employee who's switching to another job or you're switching them due to a medical condition would constitute giving them a disability claim packet. Any employee who's working full-time schedule with restrictions, and what I mean by that is duties are removed or you're removing them from that individual and maybe having someone else do them or just removing them temporarily to accommodate restrictions for them. An ADA accommodation would not be the same thing. ADA accommodation means you've provided materials or done something so that they can continue to do all of the normal functions of their job. Any employee who is working in a restricted schedule due to a medical condition, and this is often missed, is employees who have a workers' compensation injury claim. Now, obviously, if you're filing a workers' compensation claim because they will say cut their finger or their hand, and you know it's not going to be more than 6 months, but you have to file it because of OSHA requirements, that would not constitute to send out a packet. But anything that you think or believe is going to be out for more than 6 months, you would provide that claim packet. And then finally, of course, anyone who's off work completely. So again, they don't have to be completely off work. It's in one of those following capacities that if that would happen, you would provide a paperwork to them. Now, some employers want to hold on a little bit longer. So the most you should be waiting is no more than 2 months. If it's been 2 months and you haven't provided that packet, make sure to provide it to the member, document when you gave it to them. So that way, when they get it back, you can get it back to us and we can hopefully make that decision before the end of the 6 months. Okay, now we're going to look at the employer packet and go through some of the frequent areas that don't always get answered correctly or are left blank. So the first thing I want to point out is do not send any documents to Broadspire until you've received the completed claim packet from the employee. So if there's not a claim packet from the employee showing their intent that they want to file the claim will not be created. If you're sending in everything except for that, the claim is going to send in a pending folder until we receive the completed claim packet showing the intent that the member wants to file for disability. Once we receive the information, we'll create a claim and you should receive a claim received email within 5 to 7 business days stating that we received the claim packet. All right, so jumping into the employer statement, the first thing is question number 2. As we talked about this before, this is the date that you initially provided the packet to the member. This is what we're needing here. We report this annually back to ASRS, and this is what determines if they've submitted the packet within 12 months from their possible date of disability, and or if you have given the packet to them in a timely fashion. That's why we need this information. If it's left blank, you'll be asked to provide the information. Most employers, when they do provide the packet, If they email it to them, they take a copy of the email and they put it in their personnel file. Or they do something to document it, whether it's a letter that they sent out or given to them. So you'd have that information in their personnel file. All right, question number 7 is the date of the first ASRS contribution with your facility. This is essentially the date that they met membership with ASRS with your facility. That's what we're looking for, and this is important because this will determine whether we need to do that additional review. If they don't have 12 continuous months of contributions from that date, then an additional review may need to be done. You're only responsible for your facility. If they did work for someone else or another facility, the benefit specialist will reach out to the ASRS to verify if there are any other prior employers that they contributed up to when they started with your facility. If a member was rehired with your facility, the date that they were rehired and began contributing again would be what you'd put in question number 7. You wouldn't put their original membership date, as we are looking for the most recent membership in the LTD program, which more than likely would be their rehire date. Your facility should also be doing an online enrollment when you're rehiring. All right, going down the form, question number 8, compensation. This is the gross monthly compensation amount. Please don't leave it blank, or please don't put an annual amount in here. Our intake team can't always tell when they see a large amount if it's to be determined as an annual amount or a monthly. So then they send it over to a benefit specialist or myself to verify what they should be using for compensation. Please try to use a monthly compensation amount. And if it is left blank, you will be asked for this information, as ASRS will not finish processing the claim without that information. Also, please indicate the number of pay periods. Most employers are 26 pay periods. However, school districts can have anywhere from 19 all the way up to 27 pay periods. It is always nice to know when I'm trying to calculate the monthly compensation. Question number 9, working information. So this is where we want to know, what is their normal work schedule? Is it a regular 8 hours, 5 days a week, 410s, 980s, a flex schedule, or is it something other? If it is something other, make sure you're indicating the number of hours per day in their normal work schedule. Question number 10, school districts, we want to know, did they sign a contract for the next school year? Yes or no? And then we want to know the covered period for that contract. Question number 11, what was the last day they fully worked with your facility? Doesn't necessarily mean that they've missed days in between, but what was that last day they fully worked? Don't leave this blank. If they're still working, indicate either by an NA or that they're still working. I do believe you can type that into this field. This is important. This whole section will help us determine, and especially when we get into the FMLA question next. But did the employee work any partial days prior to that last full day that you've indicated on the form? Yes or no? So if there is a yes, then that helps us to believe, oh, we need to be looking prior to that last day worked for a potential data disability. Then list below any dates and hours. So question number 12, as I stated before, this is very important also, is FMLA or medical leave. Now, this doesn't mean that we're specifically just asking for FMLA. If somebody isn't qualified for FMLA or your facility doesn't offer FMLA, if they're on an approved medical leave, this pertains as well. So, were they on an FMLA or an approved medical leave? Yes or no? If they were on an approved FMLA or an approved medical leave, when did that begin? Please make sure to give us that date. Was the FMLA or approved medical leave intermittent or continuous? So this helps us immensely to figure out what the potential data disability is. Like I said, they don't have to be completely off work. But if they're on an approved FMLA or an approved medical leave and they're working intermittently, they may be eligible when their intermittent leave started. So if they're on an intermittent leave and it's prior to the last day worked, we for sure need the FMLA or medical leave documents. We also need timesheets and absence reports from when the leave began to current. Reason being is we want to see how the leave is being utilized. How often are they using it? How many hours are they using? Things of that nature. That will help us in determining the potential date of disability. So any questions in regards to that, make sure to let us know or ask me or one of the benefit specialists. But if you don't provide the information and we need it, the claim will not be considered to be a complete claim until those documents have been received. Going on to question number 18, types of employer pay. So when completing this, make sure you're thinking about what they've been paid, what are they being paid now, and are they going to get paid in the future, and for how long? So has the employee received any sick leave, donated leave, or vacation, annual leave? Yes or no? Are they getting any other type of pay that you, the employer, may be paying them? Could be compassionate pay or any other pay that the employer is still paying them. We need to know, and if it's continuous or one time, and if it is continuous, the amount that they are receiving or received, and then when is it going to end? If you didn't provide this information, we're going to ask you for the pay information because if it overlaps their LTD benefits, it will need to be reduced or it'll create an overpayment for that individual. Question number 19, short-term disability or mid-term disability. So the big thing here is if they have it, yes or no. And if they do, were the premiums paid by the employee or the employer? So if any part of the premium was paid by you, the employer, please send the approval letter and the complete question number 20. Because if any portion was paid by the employer, a percentage of that or the full amount that will need to be reduced from the disability benefit if it overlaps the LTD benefits. So that's why we need that information. Sending LTD documents. So an employer claim packet I'm sorry, not employer. All claim packets are required to be submitted through secure messaging by an employer user with the LTD associate or LTD signer role. If you log into secure messaging on the ASRS website, which we're going to go over in a few moments, and you don't see the send LTD documents option, you don't have the LTD role and you'll need to reach out to your facility web administrator for the ASRS website to make that so that they can make that update and allow you to have that role. So for those of you that are administrators or anyone who wants to pay attention here, this is how that role is set up or changed within the system. So first of all, you'd log into the ASRS secure portion of the website. Once you're there, there'll be a menu on the left-hand side. You're going to go under Other Operations, select Maintain Employer Users. Once you've done that, you're either going to create a new user or you're going to select the user that you wish to edit or add the information. Once you've selected that information or the individual, application groups, like you see here on the right, will actually populate and you'll see then the long-term disability roles, the LTD associate or the LTD signer. What's the difference between the two? If you need to look that up, if you hover over the little blue eye, a menu will pop up that looks like this. The LTD associate is someone who can do everything. They can access the claim packets, they can sign, send them, discuss it with Broadspire. They can log into the Broadspire portal, which we'll talk about in a few moments. They receive the monthly claims activity report, receive all emails and copies of letters. Now the LTD signer, this is an individual usually that backs up the LTD associate. They're able to access the claim packets, sign the employer claim packet, and submit and discuss with Broadspire. This is usually a backup. Now, if you work for Maricopa County, it is set up a little bit differently. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me in regards to that setup with Maricopa County. So as I stated before, LTD associates receive a monthly claims activity report. That monthly activity report is sent on the first day of the month. Claims that appear on this report are not always all approved. They can be pending, they can be approved, they can be suspended, and they can be terminated. So you need to be careful and look at those. Over on the last column of that report will show status codes, and those status codes, you can find the key code to those status codes in the employer guide on the employer LTD page on the ASRS website. Claims in an incomplete status will not appear on the monthly activity report. So just so you know, is they don't appear on that report until they've been actually put into a pending status. And when it goes into a pending status, it means we've received all completed information that we need to move forward on the claim. LTD associates also receive emails and copy of approval letters. They also have access to the Broadspire portal. They also have access to submit and discuss claims with Broadspire, both LTD associates and signers. Also want to let you know that LTD associates and signers are responsible for providing pay stub information for compensation received while receiving LTD benefits. So if you're ever getting an email asking that there's been an indication of compensation received and we need that pay information, we need to know what it is. Is it going to be continuous? And or when is it going to end? And we may, if it's different pay types, we may need to have pay stubs, but we'll always come to you as the employer to get that information, and you're responsible for providing it. Okay, employer users or email distribution list. Just to let you know that Broadspire or ASRS does not have access to add, remove, or update the LTD associates or signers on the distribution list. Oftentimes I'll get an email asking to remove this person or add this individual, or change your email address. We don't have access to do that. Your ASRS employer website administrator or yourself, I think you're able to change information on your profile, but to remove or update individuals, the ASRS website administrator for your facility would need to make that update. They would need to access the Maintain Employer Users link in the left-hand side menu on the secure portion of the ASRS website. And from there, they can add, remove, or update LTD roles for the employer, for your employer users. Now, each week I get, or I should say, Broadspire receives an updated list from the ASRS website. So any updates that have changed throughout that week will get updated on the last business day of each week. It also gets ran on the last business day of each month to update for the monthly activity report distribution. So just remember that ASRS or Broadspire do not have access to update that information. So when sending LTD documents, when you've logged into the secure portion of the ASRS website and up at the menu up towards the top on the left-hand side, it says secure messaging. So you're going to select secure messaging and you'll come to a screen that looks like this. You'll create a new thread, and once you create that new thread, you'll see a claim that looks like this. Now, you'll notice down at the bottom is that the Send and the Send LTD document buttons, those are the two send options. They're grayed out right now because they are required to have some information. First of all, you need something in the subject line and you need something in the body. That will highlight the Send button on the left, but that goes to ASRS. In order for the Send LTD document button, you'll need to have something attached for a file. So looking at this, first of all, you have to have something in the subject line, and you need to type the word packet is what we're asking you to type there. Some employers want to type other things in there, and that's fine. Just so you know, we will never see what's in that subject line. And I'll show you an example of that in a moment. Down in the body, make sure you're putting the member's information or the member or employee's information and your signature information. Then you need to attach a file. This only allows one attachment per secure message. So just a reminder, if you have multiple and you think that you're sending multiple, you're not. We will only get the one first attached file. So once you've attached that file, then you do not use the send button because that sends it to ASRS. If you do this, you'll get a message from ASRS saying you used the incorrect method and that you should have the send LTD documents button. And if you don't, you need to talk to your facility administrator. And then they're going to remove all those documents and ask you to resend. So you need to be using the send LTD documents button. Again, this was all designed to send documents. So if you're sending a general question with no attachment, you're not going to be able to use the Send LTD Documents button, and you'll be using the Send button, which goes to ASRS, and it'll get to Broadspire, but it'll take longer to get there. So please only use this to send documents to Broadspire. So in sending in the documents, like I said, here's what we actually see here. So the employee's name and signature need to be included in the body. And again, only one attachment per secure message. You can send, I've seen where 12 or 14 secure messages come in because there's an attachment for each one. And you just need to indicate, one of two or one of 14 and so on in the body of the message. So make sure you're including the employee or member's name and your signature in that message. Because as you can see, the subject line, it changes it to LTD documents. We never see what you put there in the subject line. And for the most part, we don't see who it's coming from. So that's why it's important to put information in the body of the message that you want us to see. Now just know anything that you put in the body of this message will be uploaded into the claim, and the employee or member will be able to see that information that you've included in the body of this message. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the portal as well. So talking about the Broadspire portal, LTD associates have access to this. You would access it by using www.myleavetech.com. Again, the LTD associate role has access. And when you've gone in and activated your information, you'll be able to get into and search everyone's claim that is within your facility. Once you're in the claim, you're going to be able to see things like the status reason. You'll be able to see who the disability benefit specialist is that handles the claim. You'll be able to see the date of disability and the benefit start date. So just note though, is if this is an incomplete or pending claim, these dates are not, they're fluent. They can be changed up until it's been approved. Once it's been approved, then those dates will be set in stone there, and that will be their date of disability and benefit start date. Scrolling down on the page a little bit further, you'll be able to see the payment information if payments have been made. So the first thing you're going to be able to see here is that line that tells who the employee is, how it was paid, whether it was EFT or a check, and when was it paid. So and that is the net dollar amount you see there. If you want to see a breakdown of the payment, you'd hit that forward caret, which would expand right below that payment and would give you the explanation of benefits. So it would show the description of what the gross monthly benefit is and any offsets or reductions, including any state or federal, Arizona state or federal income tax that was withheld from their benefit. Scrolling down the page further, you have the ability to send a note directly into the claim or to the benefit specialist. So if you want to ask a question or send any notes, again, so that I failed to mention that This portal is also accessible to all members and employees. They have the same access as you do, except for they're only looking at their own claim. They're not looking at everybody within your facility. So anything you put in as a note here or any attachments you put in via the portal will be accessible for them to view in their portal. You're not able to see any attachments um, or any notes, but they will be able to see any notes that you have put in uh, and that they've asked as well, because they put in they're put in as an attachment, and then they have access to see all the attachments. So anyway, back to sending a note. You'd select new note. A box is going to pop up and you can freeform anything that you'd like to ask here or give us information. So example, Jane will return to work on July 18th, full-time regular duty. Clue here, if you're telling us that somebody's returned to work, let us know if it's full-time regular duty or if it is that they've come back to work in a restricted capacity or restricted hours. That makes a big, huge difference. So then once you're done putting in the note, you'll hit save and it'll put it into the claim, as well as it'll create a task for the benefits specialist, letting them know that you've submitted a question or a comment, and then they have to go out and take a look at that. Any pay stubs or documents that you need to provide, you can use secure messaging under ASRS. However, the most preferred and more secure way and the quickest would be to attach it right here in the claim. So you'd select attach a file, attach that file, and again, it'll put it directly into the claim and it will notify the benefit specialist that you've uploaded a document. Now, once you've logged in, you need to log into the portal at least once every 30 days or your login will deactivate. If this happens, or if you need any assistance with logging in to the portal, you need to email Broadspire Portal Support at choosebroadspire.com. This is the support team that will help you in either reactivating your login or any assistance with logging in. Now, if you're a person that hasn't logged in ever and you're getting a message, you can send me a message just to double check that you've been added to our system for portal support. And again, this is only eligible for LTD associates. And if you are working with Maricopa County, you won't have access to the Broadspire portal. So, having said that, is if you haven't done so, getting an error message, if you want to just double check with me that you're there. If you are, then I'll let you know that you'll probably need to get in touch with the Broadspire portal support team. Getting information to Broadspire. So after the claim has been created and you need to submit additional information, or you have additional documents that need to be submitted, you can use one of the following methods. So as I said before, the most preferred is the Broadspire portal. LTD Associates role can only access this. And again, if you have any issues logging in or need to be reactivated, you send an email to Broadspire Portal Support at choosebroadspire.com. But this is the preferred method. But if you don't have access to the Broadspire portal, um, you can email ASRS Ltd at choosebroadspire.com. Make sure to include the claim number in the subject line if you know it, and include the employee's name, your information, um, in the body of the email. Don't include any PII. So any other documents that don't have PII on them, or information if you're just asking the status of a claim or anything of that nature, and you need to make sure to put in the member's name and or the claim number in the subject line so it can actually be matched up. This is the second option. Now, this is not a secure email, and please do not send anything with password protect or an encryption, because this is not a manned email address and they can't type in, or it won't do that. So you'll probably get a message back, or you may not get anything, and it may never get reached to the system, because it looks at that claim number or name and it matches up and either creates a task or sends it to our imaging system. The next is ASRS Secure Messaging. And like I said, if you're needing to send a document, include the employee's name and the LTD contact, your contact information in the body of the message. This is not a This is not a messaging to ask questions or statuses. That's where you would not use secure messaging on ASRS. This is a document portal. That's where you'd send documents. So you can send any documents, pay stubs, things of that nature there. Um, but if you're asking a question with no documents attached, it's going to go to ASRS, and then ASRS will have to forward it over for Broadspire to answer those questions. So please only use that if you're submitting documents. And then lastly, do not fax any documents to Broadspire. Now there are some online resources for you and the member. First, there's the Employer Guide, and this is housed on the Employer LTD page on the ASRS website. And this has a list of all the benefit specialists and their extensions. And also, as I mentioned before, the activity report status key code is in this guide as well. There is a list of employer frequently asked questions with expandable answers, as well as a frequently asked question video. There is also a video of the LTD portion of last year's ASRS Employer Conference, and lastly, a video of today's basic conference. Here are the online resources for members. There's the Employee Guide that outlines most of the information regarding the long-term disability plan. This is housed on the ASRS Member LTD page, so if you're on the ASRS website, go under Members and select Long-Term Disability. There is also a guide of all Arizona revised statutes and Arizona Administrative Code that oversees the long-term disability program. There's a Broadspire portal tutorial video. So basically what I kind of just went over with you regarding the Broadspire portal is a video for members, and you as employers can utilize that video at any time as well. When a member goes on claim, they're able to activate, log in, and look at their claim information or payment information online. You can see the same information as members, only difference is you can see claims for all your employees. Also on the LTD page is the Broadspire 800 number, email address, and a link to the Broadspire portal. Lastly, there is a list of member frequently asked questions with expandable answers. Here is my contact information. I am your direct contact for employers for the long-term disability program. So I do have a mobile number and my office number. The office number is forwarded automatically to my mobile number. So don't think that if you don't get me at one place that you can call the other and maybe I'll answer. They ring into the same phone. I have two email addresses, one with ASRS and one with Broadspire. Most employers will send them to both and I will answer from one of them. And again, I'm your direct contact for questions regarding the long-term disability program. Any assistance with forms or general questions I can answer. Once it gets into and the claim has been built, if you do have questions, you can ask me, but I'd prefer if you could go to either the team manager or the benefit specialist first. But if you need some specific information, I'm more than happy to help you out with that information. There's the Broadspire office 800 number. So if you're using anything other than that 800 number, please stop using that number and make sure you're using the 877 number so that we can record those calls coming in for ASRS. The benefit specialists and their extensions, again, were listed in the employer guide that's out on the ASRS website on the employer LTD page. Also, for those of you that aren't aware, there's an ASRS contact, Brianna Martinez. She is the ASRS LTD plan manager that works for ASRS, and there is her email address if you ever need assistance as well. And lastly, there is the ASRS fraud hotline. So if you ever have any suspicions and want to just report something, you can report it anonymously or what have you. I've received information off that line for suspicious activity. That is all I have for you today. I want to thank all of you for attending the long-term disability portion of the Employer Basics and make it a great day.